The Foreign Secretary of India, Shri Vikram Misri, visited Dhaka on December 9, 2024. He met with the Chief Advisor of the Interim Government of Bangladesh, Dr Mohammad Yunus, and the Foreign Affairs Advisor, Mohammad Touhid Hossain. He also held Foreign Office Consultations with the Foreign Secretary of Bangladesh, Jashim Uddin. During these meetings, Foreign Secretary Vikram Misri emphasized India's support for democratic, stable, peaceful, progressive, and inclusive Bangladesh. Interestingly, shortly after his visit on December 16, 2024, Dr. Mohammad Yunus suddenly announced the possibility of upcoming elections in the last months of 2025 or the early months of 2026. For the past 4 months, he had not mentioned anything about the elections. Even when the Bangladesh Army Chief declared plans to organize elections within 18 months, Dr. Yunus had opposed him. This raises the question, did he come under pressure from India? Dr. Mohammad Yunus, head of Bangladesh's interim government, announced on Monday, December 16th, that the next national parliamentary elections can be held between late 2025 and the first half of 2026. This announcement comes after sustained pressure from the Bangladesh Nationalist Party, BNP, now the country's primary political force following the collapse of the Awami League, AL, to outline a clear election roadmap. Until now, Yunus had resisted such demands, insisting that comprehensive reforms across various sectors must precede any elections. Yunus's emphasis on reforms, supported by the creation of 10 reform commissions spanning the constitution, public administration, anti-corruption measures, judiciary, police, and electoral processes, has sparked frustration among political parties and civil society. Later, he established 4 additional commissions to address reforms in health, media, workers' rights, and women's affairs. These commissions, led by individuals handpicked by Yunus and student movement leaders from the uprising that ousted Sheikh Hasina, are expected to take years to complete their tasks. The BNP, widely anticipated to win the next elections, has grown increasingly impatient with Yunus's reluctance to set a firm timeline. While BNP leaders agree that urgent reforms such as creating an error-free voter list and establishing an impartial election commission are necessary, they argue that broader reforms should be undertaken by an elected government with legitimacy, not by an unelected administration. Yunus has also faced mounting pressure from Western nations, particularly the United States and European Union, to announce an election timeline. These Western powers, instrumental in installing Yunus's interim government, have expressed concerns about prolonged unrest and the rise of Islamist fundamentalism in Bangladesh under his tenure. India, however, has exerted the strongest influence. During a December 9th visit to Dhaka, India's Foreign Secretary Vikram Misri informed Bangladeshi officials, including Yunus's Foreign Affairs Advisor Touhid Hossain, that India would only engage substantively with a democratically elected government. Misri's message underscored India's concerns about the interim government's legitimacy and its handling of Islamist groups, whose activities, according to New Delhi, could destabilize South Asia. India has also raised these concerns with the US and European nations, emphasizing that Yunus's extended rule risks undermining democracy and strengthening Islamist forces. New Delhi insists that elections must be held promptly to restore democratic governance. Facing growing pressure, Yunus announced a tentative timeline for elections, but attached a caveat. Elections could only occur after a national consensus on minimal reforms, leaving room for potential delays. Yunus's proxies, such as the Jatio Nagorit Committee, have echoed this stance, calling for the prosecution of individuals linked to crimes during the Awami League's rule, including former Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina, before elections are held. Western diplomats in Dhaka and New Delhi, including EU envoys from multiple nations, have pushed Yunus to expedite electoral reforms and set a concrete election timeline. While Yunus's announcement marks progress, concerns remain that his conditions for a national consensus could be used to postpone elections indefinitely. Given Yunus's track record, India must sustain its pressure, directly and through the US and European nations, to ensure that elections take place by the end of 2025 as promised. Without continued vigilance, Yunus and his advisors may find ways to extend their rule, further delaying the democratic process in Bangladesh.